All right, Dr. Morgan, thank you so much for sitting down to talk with me today. Last night, you had an interesting, pretty much 2 days that I've observed from many of us onlookers. You just got yelled at for the past 2 days. How are you, or what's on your mind this morning as that deficit reduction plan passed just hours ago?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, thank you for speaking with me this morning. The past 2 days are always challenging, but what I hear, even aside of all of the what could appear to be arguing, is I hear passion. I hear passion from a community, passion from many of our members, stakeholders that really care about our school district, and that's great. That shows that people really care about this work. And on top of that, we have really tough decisions to make. And so, yes, it's challenging. I knew with the things that were facing us, even with the deficit that's been projected for the past few years, even prior to me coming here, now is the time to make those decisions. And it doesn't always help when you're the new person coming in to make them. But that's my role, and I'm ready to do it. And so the biggest thing that I'm hearing is that people really care about the well-being of our scholars. And what I really want people to hear from me as I'm on this journey is that we will all work collectively to think about the well-being of our scholars. And there is a path forward, even when we have to make some of these decisions. And so I hope on the other side of this, we can work together to make some of these decisions.
So is there anything that you wish you would have done differently in these last 7 months in regards to the coming up with the plan?
You can always get more community feedback. You can always get more input. Of course, when you're making decisions really fast. You're doing them with the best interests in mind. There are times I just wish I could go back, and there are new people I'm learning, new stakeholders. I'm like, oh, I wish I could have talked to that person, or I wish I would have thought about this. So those are always the things that come to mind, and that's always going to be the case. If there's always more people you can get more feedback from, there's always more time. The challenge is time, and February 29th is when we have to turn this plan into the state. And so, sometimes hindsight is 20/20. You don't know what you know, but we have to turn this plan in by February 29th. This is 7 months in, and so there's still new stakeholders I'm learning. And sometimes you're learning the stakeholder as they're actually saying, hey, you didn't think about me. And so that's a learning process, and that's part of the journey. It's part of the journey of being a leader. And one of the things I prioritize coming in is listening and learning, and this is part of that. You're listening and learning, and that's something I just wish that I would have done differently, to learn more stakeholders. But sometimes you don't know what you know. And, you just move forward with that.
So who in particular would you wish to have spoken to? I heard you say at City Council, that caucus yesterday. You wish you would have spoke with them.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
Many of the city council members, of course, I've met several of them throughout. We've had one-on-one conversations, but not about the specific issues. So that is a group that was like, yeah, if we had come forward. There are also people that I talk to often, such as parents, students, and we talk, at student advisory council meetings, we talk at parent meetings, all of which I shared with the deficit prior to winter break, talked to them about some of the issues that were coming about. But, sometimes it's a specific question, or it is, hey, we have this challenging decision, of which we did share. There was a question specifically in December to both parents and students when we said, hey, we have tough budget challenges ahead. How should we prioritize that? And people give the feedback, but sometimes when you come back with a specific plan, then they say, oh, this is what you're talking about. And so I think the right stakeholders were there, and we talked to them. It's just the conversation and the continued conversation. And that's a pathway, moving forward and learning. There are business leaders that I'm learning and continuing to learn. There are, many leaders in the community, whether on the foundation side, that I continue to learn and grow to know. And so this is a part of that, learning of the community that I'm learning, as we make decisions moving forward, they need to be a part of that. But I also want to share as we make decisions, these are almost what you would think of that cabinet that's helping inform the decision. But as a district, we need to make decisions. And even as I hear all of the passion behind all the programs that we have to make decisions around, it's like we have to make a decision. The consequence of not making this decision is continued being on a continued state watch plan and eventually maybe being taken over by the state. So
Which
we need to be
been there before.
Exactly, we've been here before, so we can get past this. And so I know that I'm confident we can move forward.
Do you wish you would have spoken to the students on that, get more opportunities before making the decision or the board voting on to shut down that program, as you say, temporarily? Do you wish you would have spoke to them first?
It is, it's something I look back on. There were many different things going on when we made that decision. The first was capacity. There were a couple of staff members who were running it that said, we may need to rethink this program. Then when our budget realities started to come, we said, hey, what does the resolution say? And the resolution was around the gift and not the program. And so we looked at the resolution, we looked at what we would do, and we talked to the students, but it was after the resolution was done. And it was a question that I asked. I asked before, should we talk to the students and get their feedback? But, at the time, the thinking was, it's not at the board level. What are we, bringing to them? And that's something I wish we could have done differently. Like I said, you could always go back. You could always do more, get more engagement, and that's something I wish I really would have done. So that was a miss on my part, but you learn from it. You learn from it, and that's one of the things as I continue to talk to the students. I said, hey, we're here, we have decisions to make, and as we move forward, and I meet with the Student Advisory Council, we'll think about how we bring those decisions to the students.
Speaking of talking to the students, now Councilman Starr brought up about, he graduated from East Tech, and his students there, they were going to, put in some grant opportunities for weight rooms and things like that. What is your message to those students? And as they said, we lost hope. What is your message to those students that were hoping to participate or at least have a chance to participate in that program this year?
Yeah, well, first of all, we never want to take any hope away from our kids, from our community. And so the first thing that I would say is let's hold on to that hope. Because when I talk about our future plans of equity, a district where no matter what school you go to, you have access to high quality programs, high quality curriculum, I want to enlist those that, have those desires, have that hope that I can hear more from. So as we build upon the future of this district, we can say, what does that look like? And it doesn't have to be on chance of a grant. Why does it have to be on chance of a grant that we decide kids get what they actually need? Why don't we have it? When I talk about why don't we have access to Algebra 1 and, in middle grades across the district? Why don't we have foreign language starting as early as the middle grades and even in the high school areas? These aren't things we should have to bargain for or apply for a grant for. This should be the absolute reality. Now, of course, right now we have some budget constraints, but I want to enlist. Let's talk about the future. Let's talk about the future. How can we build upon that? And that was a pathway for that. And so, yes, now we're thinking about ways in which that specific program may return and ways that it can look like. But we also have to think about how do we make sure that all students in our district have access to those resources, and it's not just on chance. Because the thing I love about hope is hope does give us aspiration, but there's a little bit of something there that you're just saying, well, will it happen? We need to make sure that we're guaranteeing some different opportunities for our kids across the system, no matter where they live. And that is what I'm really interested in, and I'm hoping that as we move forward, that's the district we will continue to build upon.
What do you mean, not on chance?
Yeah, not on chance that, maybe you put something in. So, last night you heard the two educators that talked about the Greece trip, and they applied for the Get More opportunity 3 times and was denied. And, now they're faced with, hey, we want to go on this trip. And, they applied for it 3 times and was denied. And so that's the type of thing, it's a chance. You're putting it out there and it's a chance. Maybe you'll go, maybe you don't. How do we think about these opportunities? Now, it doesn't mean, student travel, will be at scale for all students, but there are some different things that we're looking at to say, why does it have to be on chance? Why is this not just the reality for our Cleveland scholars?
Percentage-wise, how likely, if you could put a percentage on it, how likely is it that $17 million that's left of the Mackenzie Scott donation will be transferred back to some, as your words, repurposed form of that program?
So right now we're looking into all the opportunities for that. A few things I want to say, even just with your question, I would even just say 100% likely, because it was always in the general fund. Even when we made the decision to pause the program and repurpose it, it was still being used for investments that ESSER opportunities were allowed our students to do, such as summer learning that we were still able to continue, devices that we were able to do. So these are still going back to students. But I know that the passion here is to think about how do we return a program such as the way the program was and the way students can actually get involved. And so I would say that likelihood is it's already there, it's 100% there. We need to think about how we're repurposing, how we're reimagining that program, and also making sure student voice is in there and getting some of the heart back of that program.
I just want to make sure I'm hearing clearly what you're saying, that that $17 million is going to then be allocated back to that program. Is that what you're saying with the 100%?
No, what I'm saying with the 100% is it was always in the general fund, and the purpose of the funds, the purpose of the dollars as an unrestricted grant was always meant to go to student initiatives, learning activities, and that was what it was doing when grants were giving out, and that's what it's doing now with sitting in the general fund. And so that's what I'm saying. It's 100% in the general fund. It was in the general fund before. It's still in the general fund. And what I'm hearing now from the feedback is this desire for the program to continue, the program to come back, and that's one of the things we're looking into.
Well, it does say a lot that you're listening.
Yeah.
And because to be honest, when I got off the call with the reporters, I was under the assumption, and maybe it was a false assumption, that that program was done. But when I went to city council, it was saying, no, it's just paused.
Yeah.
Now, is that a change in communication or a change in language, or was that always it's paused?
One of the things we said to the students at that point, one, the person who was running it is no longer with the system. We did know that for this year, we were not doing the administration. We put that on there was a program that was up and running where teachers could, apply to grants, and we had to stop that at that point. We were, we had already put in the resolution that it was not going to continue at that point. When I started hearing feedback on, there's a desire for it to come back, I have started saying, hey, we need to bring this back. We need to figure out how we can do this. Let's look at what we're doing with our budget and how we can actually bring that back. So I would say that is a change in terms of how we were thinking about it. Of course, at one point we said, hey, this is done. We had stopped the applications. And hearing the feedback, we're hearing, no, we really want this back. How can we do this? And we know that there are things we have to fix with it. There are equity issues with it. We do have our budget realities. And so those are the things I'm hearing and also trying to figure out the path forward.
So how long will that time frame be?
Yeah, I'm hoping really as we're looking into this to make decisions by the spring. We have to make our budget decision by, we're taking our budget by May or June. So I hope to have an idea of what the program will look like and, just really seeking that insight. I am working with our board. Our board is working really closely with us because it was a board resolution, not on the Get More program, but on the Mackenzie Scott dollars. And I want to make sure that collectively we have a path forward that is both fiscally responsible, but then also hearing the needs. I mean, you hear the passion where people are like, we want this back. And the reason why I said, went to the 100% certainty, I just want everyone to be clear. It was always in the general fund. It was always there. This is the purpose. Even in the resolution that it said it was going to go for. So it's not money was taken anywhere or put anywhere. It was always there. And so I said with 100% certainty, it's always where it was. It's just a matter of how we're utilizing the funds. The Mackenzie Scott funds was an unrestricted grant that we were given. The Get More program was a program designed of how to utilize those funds. And so now we have to figure out what the path forward is.
Trying to figure out, do we use it for the deficit or the program and whatever it's going to be best for everyone.
Yeah, best for everyone. And even when I would say the deficit, it's for programs that our ESSER allowed us to expand, and now we didn't have to completely, gut some of those programs out. Summer learning, one-to-one devices. But now we may decide, okay, how does it look like for funds to go across the schools? How does it look like for student voice to happen? So that is a change in our thinking based on the feedback that we've heard.
Thank you for the clarification. I do appreciate that. Speaking of clarification, multiple claims yesterday at that school board meeting. I know we only have a few minutes left, but What is your response to some of the teachers saying that this deficit is made up because of teacher negotiations that are going on right now?
Well, I can't speak for them. All I have to say is just look at the previous 5-year forecasts that were presented. The previous administration presented this, year after year, always showing the 24-25 year school year was going to be there. So if it was made up now, it was made up then. I guess that's what I would say. This is our reality of where it is, and I hope people understand that this is not easy. Ideally, this is not something when you take over a district, you say, oh, and you want to come in and say, hey, we have all these programs we have to do. We have these deficits. In a year where we have to think about how do we, pay our staff fairly, which they deserve. Like, these are all really tough things, and I hope people know that these are not things that I take lightly. And it's not easy at all. And so I don't know who would sign up and make that up. Not me. That is not the way I would want to start. And so I would just say, to them, look at what has been presented before. And also with what has been presented before, we have been here before. Mm-hmm. We'll get through it.
How are teacher negotiations impacting the plan, the budget reduction plan, and then in April moving on to solidifying that budget?
One, you can't discuss the specifics of negotiations, but negotiations in any year, depending on what happens, there are some adjustments they may make, depending on what the contract agrees upon. And, I had a conversation with a nurse right after the board meeting, one which I love our school nurses. My mom is a school nurse, and so I'm always advocating and cheering for our school nurses as well. And she said, how are school nurses impacted in this plan? I said, school nurses are not in this plan at all. I said, well, of course, we're in negotiations. And of course, if anything comes off the table, calendar, out of school time, any of those decisions, it impacts something else. Like, something else has to give somewhere. Now, that's not saying that that's happening with nurses, but I was just telling her any of those different things can change. And that's the same thing with negotiations. Based on what happens, it can change anything. But we're on pace, we're on track. I feel good about where we are with negotiations, and we're working collaboratively with our teachers union.
All right, when is that contract up?
It ends June 30th.
Oh, this June?
Yes.
I don't envy you. I do not envy you at all. So what's next? You're giving it's going off tomorrow.
Yes.
What's next for the district right now?
Yeah, so one, we have to now finish up the budget. So this was a state deficit plan that gives us parameters. We now need to finish our budget. That means some of the tough decisions ahead of us around central office. We have to notify some of our central office staff about what is going on, the changes that are happening. But I also am very optimistic. As a matter of fact, over the next 2 days, my team will be in strategic planning meetings, not necessarily talking about the budget, but we're talking about the future. And one of the things I started this year with talking to my team, I said, there's a lot on our plate. There was a graphic I held of this person like balancing all these different things. I said, we have budgets, we have facilities, we have negotiations, we have all these different things, all of which I told them that any district or any superintendent I know would say, wow, one of those in 1 year is enough to tackle, and we're tackling them all in this year. But with that, I said we have to keep our eye on the prize. And the prize is making sure there's equity and access and high-quality programs for all of our students. And so I'm really excited. I know in our academics department we're working on how do we make sure there's a high-quality ELA curriculum in all of our schools. One of the things we're thinking about are pathways. And we have our core measures that are going to make sure that we're having high-quality pathways and increase our graduation rate. So these are the different things I'm looking forward to building. And also looking forward to thinking about what programs are going to be in all of our buildings. So that's what's next. And we'll be in a 2-day planning retreat that is helping us think about not only our current plan, but also the future plan. So I'm looking forward to that. It's going to fill up my cup.
Yes, I would say that's an understatement of the year. But anything else that you want to say that I didn't ask you about that's very germane to this topic?
Yeah, a few things I want to make sure is clear. I know people are still getting a chance to know me.
I'm sorry. What did you say, people?
People are still getting a chance to know me as a person. And one thing, 3 things I want people to know is like I care deeply about our Cleveland community in the future. I also care about the well-being of our scholars across our entire city, and I'm deeply committed to equity and excellence across our system. And so as we make these decisions, I'm listening. I'm willing to adjust. So it's never a thing of like, you know, we put out a plan and people give feedback that we can't adjust. That's what we do. But we also have to stay true to the goal, and that has to be our scholars and making sure there's equity and excellence across the system. And so I'm looking forward to the journey. And I just enlist people to work with me on this journey.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Thanks so much.